Yes, thanks a lot, Lisbeth, for this very interesting presentation. It was a lot of information to go on. I have already a few questions in the Q&A. The new questions are still welcome if you want. I will read you the first question. I am a bit surprised about the statement that the current recycling rate for nickel is 0%. How is recycling defined in this case?
Yeah, so very clearly, the 0% is about the pure nickel recycling. And the definition that we use is end-of-life recycling. So it's the ratio of nickel that is available versus the nickel in the system. And I do want to emphasize that nickel is definitely also recycled in the stainless steel industry. But in the definition that we use here, we looked at the pure nickel, and maybe I'm low on 0%, maybe it's 1 or 2%, but definitely the pure nickel recycling is not super meaningful yet.
Mm-hmm. Especially since the use of nickel is mainly inside alloys and then chemicals.
Exactly, yeah. Sorry.
A question from Gwendoline. Your research shows that self-sufficiency rate is 0%, but 55% in announcements for lithium in the EU. But what about for rare earths? Is there a similar comparison?
Oh, sorry, a bit too fast. Yes, for rare earths, there is a similar comparison. It's in the study, and it ranges between 20 and 40%, and could even go a little bit higher. There are good projects also on rare earth elements, and I think for dysprosium, I don't know by heart now, but I think it could even go to 80% by 2030. But there is very much the challenge, I think, of all commodities. I think even rare earths are advancing the least fast, are also technologically the most challenging, but could also be very rewarding if they happen.
Okay, thank you. A question from Jan Mertens. Great presentation. Can you give your gut feeling of the magnitude of this fifth pillar of substitution in helping to reduce the supply risk? Why do we think it will come in as late as recycling, and why not earlier?
Yeah, that's a very good question. My gut feeling is different to maybe my naive and progressive thinking. My gut feeling is that politics are not moving fast enough. I think there is a lot of potential, especially in the transportation sector, but I do not believe that in Europe, nor the political base, nor the public base is ready to get this change quickly. I think it requires a rethinking of the system. It's not just about sharing cars. It's not about getting the public transport. It's about doing everything at the same time. And especially public transport, you're talking about infrastructure projects that take time. So I think even if you can get the thoughts in the same direction, the implementation would also take time. And I think therefore that brings my gut feeling till 2035, 2040 before we would see meaningful reduction in demand of metals.
Wow, thank you. A question from Simon Boule. The Pacific Ocean seafloor between Hawaii and Mexico holds more nickel, cobalt, and manganese than all terrestrial deposits combined. Belgium, France, Germany, Poland, UK all have licenses there, and the United Nations are currently drafting deep sea mining legislation. How is your vision on this?
Yeah, deep sea mining definitely has potential. My vision on that is uncertain, and that's also why it's not taken up into our study. We have made also the note in the study that there is potential from deep sea mining, but I think it is not in an advanced stage enough yet to consider it as real options. I think the investigation should still be ongoing, and if developed, it has serious potential. But I'm also a bit reluctant to consider it as a solid scenario yet in the next 1 to 2 decades. But I fully acknowledge the potential there as well, but also the risks. Yeah.
All right. For the moment, there's no new questions in the Q&A, but I have a question, if you allow me. On the fourth pillar, maximize recycling. Have you also investigated the amounts of batteries, photovoltaic panels, and magnets that will come on the market as a function of time?
Yes, we did that. And it's a good question, because I can tell you a little bit more about that. The recycling potential was quantified in that sense that we used the IEA scenario to define how much solar panels, batteries, windmills, etc. would be used in Europe. And we used then average lifetimes. We used 15 years for batteries, for solar panels, and windmills was more 25, 40 years. But we did assume that the lifetime, respected lifetime, average lifetime, and we also assumed that all of the solar panels, batteries that are consumed in Europe, that they will also be recycled in Europe. I think for solar panels, that's maybe more of an obvious assumption to take than for batteries, because we do export end-of-life cars. And I think it's still a question when you have your end-of-life car, what happens with that battery? And in my study, I assumed the battery would stay in Europe, but I don't think it's clear yet what would be handled with that battery. I do think that this study is a good incentive for Europe to hold on to the battery, because it is the potential for Europe to become more sustainable in its energy system and to get this level of strategic autonomy. But the future, policy making will tell how that will go exactly, but those at least are the assumptions in this study.
All right. And I have also another question. You mentioned the aluminium, zinc, and silicon struggling industry because of their high energy demand. The energy demand is mainly electricity.
Yeah.
We are led to believe, we must assume that electricity is a part of the future solution for Europe. So when do you think the prices will drop, and allowing these industries not to struggle anymore with the technology of the future, actually?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. It depends. It depends on how fast Europe can get its renewable in the system. The faster that Europe makes work of its renewables, the more renewable energy it is, the more affordable renewable electricity that Europe will have. But it's a hard nut to crack in the meantime. And I think here very much it requires political support on this hard nut to crack in the meantime, but also definitely to get these high levels of renewable energy in Europe as soon as possible. It's a bit of a capex for lower OPEX in the future, but yeah, I find it hard to say. I hope it will go fast, but I don't have a personal perspective on that, only hopes.